Miss Womble.
Hello there. How are you?
I don't see you or hear you, but wait a minute. There, can I hear you now? Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Here, I'll let you see me, but I'm going dark.
I understand.
I'm gonna listen in right now. I'm
Okay.
on the phone with HP about a $50 cartridge I had to buy, and I want them to credit.
Oh my.
So no big deal, but I just want to listen today.
Yeah, that's fine.
If I can control myself.
That's the big question, isn't it?
Always, but thank
Yeah.
you. And nice to meet you, actually, to see you.
I know it is
I-
really good. It's been a while. I don't know
It
if
has
we've ever met in person, have we?
No, I
Okay.
can't wait till we can meet in person, but because I go to the J 3 days a week, I could just pop over.
Yeah. Well, one of these days, hopefully soon.
Have a great day and
Thanks.
weekend. I'm going
Thanks.
dark.
You too.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How's it going, Anita?
It's going. It's definitely going.
Well, I would respond to that by saying that's an answer.
Wish I had a better one.
Oh no, that doesn't sound great. Hey, Nikki.
Just the business she's in.
Yeah. Yeah. That I believe too. Hey, Marianne. Hey, Shulamit.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How is everything going with you guys over there?
Good, good.
How do you guys make it hazy in the background?
It's called a blur on your background.
Yeah, if you go
Blur.
to your own picture and press on the three dots, right, you can then go to where is it? Choose virtual background, and it'll pull up all kinds of stuff. Blur is one of them.
Okay, well, after we're done, I'm
I
gonna do
learned
that
that trick from Stacy Hudson at Colrena.
because it's kind of messy behind me. I appreciate a little blur going on.
I mean,
I
you
know
can do
how
all
you
kinds of
feel.
fun stuff, right? You can pick you can pick the logo, right?
Oh,
Or the building, if you've
Outer
got one. that
space.
you wanna show.
Outer space is good.
Yeah,
oh, there's the three things.
Slide.
So,
Where are the three things?
The
Top right
dots,
corner.
if you hover over your own picture on the screen, you'll
Uh-huh.
see that it says mute or those three little dots kind of in the
Uh-huh.
corner of your own picture. Today's tutorial brought to you by the Jewish Light. So
that
we,
didn't go.
oh, you picked space or something.
I don't know. Now I'm all blue. Okay, I got to do this.
It inverted something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's under studio effects. I don't see it.
You're
Video
on virtual
filter.
backgrounds?
Yeah.
I have virtual backgrounds, but I don't see the blur thing.
So are there a lot of different options?
Nope. I have the space. I have looks like grass, and I have San Francisco.
So it may also, you know what? How old's your computer? 'Cause,
Ancient.
Only only certain computers can handle certain things, so it may
Ah.
not be an option because your computer may not have the chip, as Shulamit is finding out right now to be able to make.
She's in outer space now.
Uh-huh.
Usually true.
You
But
understand,
you
I'm not
need a
going to be
green
listening
screen,
to you at
Shlomi.
all now. I'm going to be playing with the background the whole entire meeting.
Marion, you are definitely amused. I see in your face right now. Nikki too.
Because I've gone through all this. I can't do a green screen either at least I can't figure out how to do it. So I stick with the blur.
Hey, Paul, how are you? How are you, Ruth?
Yeah, the green screen feature
morning,
only
good
works.
morning.
Good morning. With certain level processors and newer computers.
Yeah, I have, my laptop is brand new, but still can't figure it out.
See, Scott's out in space. He came on. Oh, there you go, Anita.
And there you go. I'm in a movie.
Now show
There you
it.
go.
Right.
All right, well, it's 10:03, so we'll go ahead and get started now that we've gone through today's technical support call on Zoom for all of us. So good to see you all. For me, I think it's been a couple weeks because I was traveling, or I don't know where I was. And it was good to see some of you at the Federation when we did the in-person Sukkah week, which was that just 2 weeks ago? Maybe that was. I have no concept of time anymore. I think it's a common thing. So it's great to see all of you. I don't know if we have an agenda today because Brian and I have been busy and haven't talked. So this may just be a quick check-in. But Brian, I'll leave that to you or Karen. You all should have gotten Scott's password safety security email. Always be cognizant of that. That was very creative, Scott.
So we don't have a specific agenda. There are just a couple of things I wanted to remind people about or bring up. One is that on November 18th, Nava Cantor is going to join us. The third needs assessment, the needs assessment that most of you filled out this summer has been completed, and the report is being put together and to talk through with you guys what we heard from all of you and where the kind of priorities seem to be for most of the organizations in the community. No surprise, I'll give you that mental health is a big piece of what came out of that. The other piece really is around concern and care for staff specifically. How do we support and take care of our staff in this time? So
Here.
those were the two main things, but Nava will present it and you guys will have access to the entire report with all of the data. She'll do a much better job than I will.
Yeah,
talking about
please.
that. Shulamit, you, if you could mute, it sounds like you're talking to some other people off screen. The only other thing I just wanted to bring up is something that I had a call with the community rabbis yesterday. We started a conversation about something that some people are going to feel maybe a little early, but Israel at 75 is coming up. It's coming up in 2023, and believe it or not, it's actually time for us to start that planning relatively soon. And so I'm really interested in talking for just a minute with you guys a little bit about, because you collectively have all been here, or individually have been here for far longer than I have. Past Israel celebrations, we talked a little bit about Israel 50 and the kind of street festival that was created. Israel 60, which was, what was it called? Kaleidoscope? No. Karen, you know what it was called. What was it called?
Light Fest, I think. Wasn't it called
Yeah.
Light Fest?
Light Fest. That was it, Light Fest.
And Israel 70, which was like a walk, right? And so we talked through all of that and spent a little bit of time. For those of you who have been around for a little bit and have some thoughts on community Israel celebrations, I guess the first thing is that we talked about with the rabbis for a couple of minutes was, do we want to do a community celebration around Israel 75? Commemoration, celebration, recognition. I'm asking a question that I think is obvious, but how are people feeling? Should we be doing something? Yeah, Anita's shaking her head. Right. So that's the first most important thing, right? Okay, so if everybody feels that we should be doing something, then the question is, what's worked or hasn't worked in the past? Does anybody have any thoughts or want to share anything, their perspective or things that they've heard from other places?
Brian, how did the rabbis feel? Did they feel that a community-wide effort was the right way to go?
Yeah, right, the question of should we be doing something as a community, they're like, is that really a question, right? Like, okay, but I think then the question becomes, what does it look like? What do we do? And look, the rabbis and synagogues are one piece of this puzzle, but as communal institutions, another actually much bigger piece of that puzzle in a lot of ways too. So I'm interested in people's thoughts on what has worked or hasn't, or thoughts people have about things we should be thinking about or cautious of, or anything else.
Well, certainly doing a walk, given the time of year that the anniversary will take place, which is what, in May, in all likelihood, I think is always appropriate. It certainly gets out a lot of people, gets out a lot of families to celebrate.
Thanks.
Nothing brings people out more than free food.
I'm writing down Greg, free food.
Like a walk and then a barbecue. With beer.
Well, now I'm on board.
The power of group dynamics.
Right, we can build on each other's ideas. I think one of the other questions that we kind of had was, is this a community celebration, right? Like, are we saying this is something that we all are saying there's going to be a community celebration, right? Not a bunch of, I want to be careful how I say this, because there will absolutely be events that happen throughout the community put on by different institutions in celebration of Israel 75. And I'm not suggesting that we take all that under one umbrella necessarily, but as a community, do we want there to be a single kind of opportunity or focus for some kind of celebration?
So
Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I think there's a range of views towards Israel among different organizations in town. I think a celebration of the anniversary is certainly something that all organizations can come together on in a way that really allows us to be unified. It's really very nice. So unified around the anniversary date.
Marion, you were going to say something as well? And then
thank you.
Nikki.
So I remember the walk from a few years back. And while it was very nice, and certainly if, God forbid, we're still dealing with COVID, that's probably a good way to go. But I don't know that, I mean, it almost could have been a walk for anything. And I'm thinking that, you know, a real program might be a nice option this time around. The walk was a tremendous effort. I mean, there was, I think it was the JCC in particular, put a lot of time and thought into the route and security and all of that. And it was a decent turnout, but you almost felt like you were sort of on your own because you were walking with your family or, you know, with a couple of people, but you didn't get that whole group effect really. So I think my vote would be for something that is in one location, if we can pull that off, if you know, if we can do it safely, and have more of a set program.
Thanks. Nikki, you were going to say something as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that maybe a couple of things that have different target audiences, but that are community-wide, would be a way to look at it so that, you know, people with little children might be inclined to come to one thing, maybe something, you know, musical or whatever, you know, something that again, we can all agree on in terms of the arts or, you know, Sababa, kind of combining it with something that's going on, kind of high level. So yeah, I think it's really important. And I think that the more those other events can be part of this planning or umbrella, that's a great statement also. So that's my initial off the cuff.
You touched on a couple things that we talked about. I talked about with the rabbis yesterday also, and I'll get to that in a second. But I think one of the things that came up, obviously, when we start talking about, as Paul mentioned, celebrating Israel, is that we talked about the diversity of what Israel is and what it represents and how people view it, and kind of having to have some kind of definition to know what falls outside of what we'd be comfortable with, right? Like there are diverse opinions and there are different views of what Israel is and what it does and how it functions and all those kinds of things. We're here to celebrate something. So what falls, we didn't come up with an answer, but the question was raised, and I think Paul did too. There has to be something that we can say, this fits with what we're trying to accomplish and these other things don't. I think, Paul, you were touching on that there may be groups who want to focus on the negative or some of those things, and that maybe that's not what this, whatever we're calling it, is going to be about. And so it doesn't fit underneath, Nikki, as you were saying, kind of this banner, right? There's a banner of things that may happen, or right, and it just doesn't fit possibly. Thoughts on that, or either yes, or just concerns or thoughts around that? So I will tell you that we started on the walk here and then have started to get some different ideas. The rabbis, and I didn't want to prejudice anyone because everybody's entitled to their own opinion, so it doesn't really matter. The rabbis first said, we don't want to do a walk again, right? What they kind of gravitated more towards this, as Nikki mentioned, the Sababa kind of idea, right? There's something that brings everyone together, and maybe there's some kind of a keystone or capstone thing, but there are options or opportunities, and whether that's indoors or outdoors, right, as Marion was mentioning, what it looks like and who's responsible for what and all this, that's part of the conversation is, you know, are we doing this for our own community? Are we doing this as a public relations? As I said on the call yesterday, and I'll say here, right, there's a Greek food festival, right, at the Greek Orthodox Church every year. It's not, I mean, it is as much for their community as it is bringing in others and being like, celebrate Greek food, come eat Greek food, like it's for everyone. We have to, I think, do a little bit of work as a community to say, who are we doing this for? Is this for our own community? Are we trying to build bridges? Are we trying to open ourselves up and introduce people to stuff? All good, any one of those can work. What we need to do and why we need to start now is to kind of define some of this and say, what are we looking to accomplish with this? Who's the audience? What fits within or outside of this? And then recognize that, that it is not a one thing and only one thing happens. It is probably about us saying, there's a month or a week or whatever, and like the Shema banner is used to kind of push out information, what's going on, we as a community can find a way to say, we're having a big event or a series of big events. and there's a lot of other stuff going on, and here are all of your choices. That's really kind of what the rabbis have talked about, and we've started to talk about a little bit of that. How does that sound or feel to people here? Does that resonate, or are you thinking that something else might be better? Yeah, Anita?
I think that whenever Israel is involved, it has to be a PR event because Israel gets a lot of flack throughout the world all the time for every little thing. And so anytime that you're doing something for Israel, it needs to be a PR event.
It's a really fair point, given the world that we live in.
I think talking about the what Israel represents to the world, the accomplishments that Israel has brought to our society, I think it's an opportunity on Anita's point to publicize the outsized role that Israel has played in our lives through its accomplishments.
You know, Brian, if I could just make a comment, and this comment won't be about content at all, primarily just logistics.
Yeah.
Although the walk was fantastic, I can tell you this much: it was very expensive to accomplish that because of the amount of restrictions that I mean, unless it was some sort of private driveway or private roadway or whatever. But when you start talking about public streets and what we had to do to shut down streets and what we had to do to secure that group on a public street, you know, it becomes a very expensive proposition. A festival type scenario, like what you were saying, like the Greek festival or whatever, on a body of property is probably a much, you know, easier route to go logistics wise.
I would expect nothing less from you, Scott, and certainly part of this is recognizing what's going on in the world around us right now, and
Sure.
Doing something that both we are comfortable with and that we feel people will be comfortable. Somebody mentioned families. We've got to be able to create an environment and event where families and others are comfortable coming. So something like a walk or something like the Israel 50, which was right downtown, may not feel as comfortable to people, and we have to recognize the world that we're living in and make plans accordingly as well. Which doesn't mean that anything is off the table, just that we might either have to work harder or, quite honestly, pay a lot more money to get to the same place where we can make people feel comfortable, and that may be part of the decision making, because at the end of the day, we do have to be practical a little bit also. Marion, did you want to add something? No, okay. I thought you came off mute. Any other thoughts around Israel at 75? I mean, what I'm hearing is, yeah, people want to do something, and that we want to have an opportunity to celebrate Israel turning 75, and that within that, there's a lot of opportunity for diversity of thought. There's a lot of opportunity for diversity of programming, and there are a lot of different ways that we could go about trying to engage with the community, both our own and outside the Jewish community around this. It can be both an opportunity, right, to do some of the PR, and Paul, as you were talking about, kind of maybe a month of highlighting the, but that there's a big enough space under there to do some things. So at some point,
yeah, and Brian, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, and at the end of the day, of course, we make anything work.
Yeah. Scott always does, as you all know. He will make it work. If you guys want it to get done, he'll make it work. So part of this is also going to be figuring out how we manage this and where it's centered, and stuff. But we will certainly, it's a community initiative, and you all represent organizations in the community. So not only will you have a voice around it, we hope that you'll be actively a part of it, whatever it ends up looking like. Some of your organizations more traditionally gravitate towards these kinds of things in terms of planning pieces of it than others. It's open to anyone, not just to be a part of, which we hope everybody will, but to be a part of kind of having a conversation around it. The one thing that didn't come up here today that came up with the rabbis that I just want to mention, because I think it's really fair, is that we do have a group of Israelis who live in this community, and they often see Yom Ha'atzmaut very differently than Americans see it. And there has been some tension in the past about multiple, celebrations because of people feeling what's the authentic way to do that. And that's something that we're looking to try and bridge up front, because I feel it's important that we have a community focus, not that they can't do their own things, but that, Israelis, expatriate Israelis' vision of what Yom Ha'atzmaut is really important to them, and we need to let them do that. And we need to maybe invite other people in to see what that is. But as a group of mostly non-Israeli expatriates, we have a slightly different version of that. And both those things can exist. It's just how much time and space they each take up. So for whatever it's worth. So that was the only thing. First of all, I really appreciate everyone's input and thought. We are obviously going to start moving pieces forward, and we will continue to talk about it here. As I think about it, there are two core groups that we need to engage, and that is both the synagogues and the institutions in the community and the community at large. It's always easier to find representation from institutions than just kind of a random call for people. So we're going to start working on it and come up with a plan, and I'm sure that this is something that we'll be talking about for the next year and a half, because it is May of 2023. The other thing that did come up is Sababa is in November of 2022. And there was, I think somebody mentioned, right, there's not a significant amount of space between those two things. There's enough, but whatever we do, we want to make sure that that we don't cannibalize one for the other, that the Jewish Arts and Music Festival, right, that Jewish Arts and Culture Festival that is happening is able to live on its own. And that having talked with Brad and the Jay a little bit, Israel at 75 is something different than just Jewish arts and culture. And we got to be careful not to try and meld those two things, because the whole idea is that Sababa is that we're working towards a semi-annual, biannual. I never remember which one it is. Biannual, sorry. Every other year, Jewish Arts and Culture Festival. It doesn't necessarily mean Israel. And as Anita said, anytime Israel's brought in, it creates a different kind of dynamic. Those two things need to be kept separate, because Sababa is hopefully going to continue and be something. And Israel at 75 happens once, but so Israel at 80 and 85 and 90 and 95 and 100. So just being careful. Karen, did you want to say something?
One thing about Israel, we are going to be planning a Show Me Israel community mission in 2023 in celebration of Israel's 75th. That's going to be in October. So put that on your calendar. I don't have dates yet, but we will. It'll be after the Chagim for sure. And the other, so that's also, as we talk about kind of the year of celebration, please note that we are doing a community mission. Doesn't mean you can't have your own missions. We would love to see as many people get to Israel as possible, but we will be doing our third Show Me Israel trip. Can I switch gears a second?
Yeah, I just want to say, part of the beauty of the Show Me is that we do tracks. So there's a big marketing push that we put on, but then there are opportunities for institutions or individuals to see Israel in the way that they want. And so certainly synagogues and other places have done tracks where you focus on a specific number of things over some days, or get to spend time with your rabbi or your executive director. That is very much a part of this. We want, right, if you've been thinking about doing a trip, we can help help publicize it, help be part of a larger group, but allow you to do the trip that you want as well, and that your constituency might want as well. And so really it's about getting the community to go to Israel, but experiencing it, there are options, right? The food option, this option, that option, all different things. If you're interested or thinking about that as an institution, please reach out to us and let's talk about it. Our goal is to get as many people there as we can, and how they experience it, what they get there. We'll certainly do a couple of things together as a full group, but there are opportunities. So, okay, sorry, Karen.
No, just switching gears to something that's a little bit closer. Jewish Federations of North America is starting an initiative called Shine a Light on Anti-Semitism. And it's really exactly what it says, shining a light on anti-Semitism during Hanukkah. So it's federations and JCRCs, we applied for a micro grant We hopefully will get that. We've brought on the ADL, AJC, and NCJW to be our partners. You're going to probably hear more about it. If we get the grant, we're going to be doing some programming and highlighting the work that our St. Louis Jewish community is doing around anti-Semitism, whether it's student to student and some of the other programs, our schools. If you have programs that you do at your institutions that you want to make sure are highlighted during that week, let us know. But we'll send more information out later as we see if we get the grant and exactly what the plans will be. But it will be during some candlelighting during Hanukkah. So stay tuned.
All right, does anybody have anything that they wanted to bring up or talk about today? Everybody survived the holidays and we're all just moving towards the end of the year. It's fall. Thank you guys for the feedback on Israel at 75 locally. Thank you, Karen, for sharing about Israel at 75 there. Great.
All right, well, we won't take up any more of your time, so I'll do the important thing of saying thank you. Good early Shabbos. Have a great weekend, and thanks for making the time to be here. And if you ever need anything, let us know.
Thank you.